G'day, and welcome to my tutorial for running Doom. So, a mate of mine just got an Ally X, which is, or a ROG Ally X, whatever it's called. It's basically a handheld PC, and he wants to run Doom on it, and he's seen my setup because I've been playing Doom for decades. I'm into the modding scene, all that kind of stuff. So, he just wanted a video on how to get it all running. So I thought I'd make him a video, and then I thought, you know what? I'll upload it to the old channel as well, just in case other people want to see it. And that is what this is. So, as you probably know, Doom has got a little bit of a revival because it's just been re-released again. I think it's like 35 years old now. On PC and on console as well this time. So there's a new version called Doom plus Doom 2. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be using a source port. See, ages ago, the Doom source code was released, and that turned the whole modding community into being able to make these really advanced source ports to run Doom. But you'll still need the Doom WADs, the iWADs, to actually get this to work. So an iWAD is basically an internal WAD, or a WAD stands for where's all the data. Now, they consist of the shareware version of Doom, which probably no one has anymore unless they're real collectors like me. We've got Doom, Doom 2, TNT, Plutonia, and the Heretic and Hexen WADs. They're basically the iWADs. There is also something called FreeDoom. Now, FreeDoom is an open source project that has recreated all the Doom sprites and sounds and levels and everything, but they're new graphics. So if I click on the graphics, right, you can see it doesn't look like Doom. Okay, it's its own game. But the important thing is that it matches the exact structure of the iWADs, which is like all the internal data that all the other mods use as kind of like a base. What that means is you can use FreeDoom as an iWAD, because if you're doing heavy modding of Doom anyway, you're pretty much replacing everything anyway, so it doesn't really matter what the iWAD is. The iWAD dependency is really just, you know, a nod to the support of the product Doom. But anyway, if you do not want to buy Doom, use FreeDoom. I suggest you buy Doom because it's awesome. The other thing you'll need is a source port. There are so many source ports. Some of them are really strict copies of Doom original, like Chocolate Doom or Crispy Doom, which is a slightly looser interpretation based on chocolate. You've got Doom clones that are kind of mimicking the original Doom, but have a lot more advanced mapping features, sort of like Nugget Doom. But the one that you probably want to get is ZDoom, or GZ Doom is the big one now. So GZ Doom is basically got all the bells and whistles, and it's very, 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 very good. It allows you to, if most of the time when you're looking at mods, if you're looking at really fancy and hugely mods that change everything or make complete TCs, they're usually using GDoom. Anyway, so download GZ Doom, and now I've already downloaded thing. I'm just going to grab it from my server so I don't have to download everything while I'm doing this. This little thing I'm using here is called Total Commander. It's basically, I've been using, so back in DOS days, there was Xtree and Norton Commander, right? And then when Windows came out, like right back at the beginning of Windows, Windows Commander came out. And now it's called Totals Commander because Microsoft didn't like them saying Windows. If you're into Linux, you probably use Midnight Commander, which is basically a remake of Norton Commander. Anyway, whatever, I'm getting off topic here. The point is, it's a file manager that I use and I've been using for decades. And I'm just going to be using it here. So this thing is just a file manager. Anyway, so go into your games directory, wherever you want to put it, and type in Doom. And that's going to be our root directory. And I'm going to make a directory called Engines. And in that, I'm going to copy in GZ Doom. Okay. So this is just what's been downloaded. Okay. So I suggest that when you download a file, so if I click on this to download it, unarchive the file using the file name as the base. Okay. Rather than just normally. And that way you've got the file name in the directory and you know exactly what version you downloaded, and you know, so when you're upgrading, and you can keep track of what versions you have, whatever. And that's that. Doom is down. Now, again, you'll need the iWads. Now, I've got all my iWads separated out. So just go to wherever you've installed your game or download the free Doom and get the iWads. Okay, so I'm just going to make a directory called official. I'm going to make another directory called iWads. And I'm going to stick in all the iWads. Okay, you don't need all of these. You really only need Doom and Doom 2, but I'll put them all in. Now, if you've got the latest version from that one I've shown you, it'll come with a bunch of other things as well that you don't really need. You've got extras, ID res, ID weapons, and ID2 res. You don't really need them. They're not used yet. There's the deathmatch pack if you're into playing online, which I'm personally not. So I'll just put them in a folder called junk. So I won't bother copying that over for now. Now you also want a loader of some kind. Now I use Doom Runner. Okay, so I'm just going to type in to here. I'm just going to go Doom Runner. I might just make a directory because there's lots of different loaders you can use. I just copy over Doom Runner. You can just download this. So Doom Runner looks like this when you load it up. Okay, just a basic mod loader you've probably seen a million times in other apps. If it's too small, and if you've got a massive screen and it's too small, you can go to properties, go to compatibility, change DPI settings, and change override and set it to system, and that'll just sort of enlarge it all. Okay, so now we have it. We need to set up Doom. Okay, so we've got the engine and the iWad. So let's go to menu, initial setup, and we're going to add in our engine. It's really called a source port, but I just say engine because source port is too confusing. And you'll see there's these options for a config directory and a data directory. I use these. It's more advanced, so maybe you might not want to, but I would strongly suggest that you do use them. Now you'll see that by default it says save games into C users. That's terrible, so I definitely want to change that. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to hit the browse button, go to where I've installed the engine, go into the engines folder, go into GZ Doom. I'm going to make a folder here. I'm going to call it, actually I'm going to, yeah, I'll do it in here. I'm going to call it configs. Okay, just copy that. And I'm going to do the same thing for the save games. Underscore save games. And press OK. Then I'm just going to click this to use absolute paths. You don't really need to do that. It's just that I mainly use Linux and you have to do it on Linux. So whatever, I just use it. Now manage iWad list. I'm going to go auto manage from directory. I'm going to browse, go back to my Doom, go to my official folder and iWad, and bam. It's just going to add all the iWads. Boom, you're done. We're almost there. Now I'm just going to go to initial setup again because I clicked out of it by accident. You have directory with maps, directory with mods. So I'm just going to hit browse. I'm going to go to the root of my Doom. I'm going to make a directory. I put an underscore at the start to force the directory to the top of the list. And I'm going to call it mods and wads. Now, Doom Loader allows you to use multiple directories for maps and for mods, but I find that I just put them all in the same directory. It's easier for me. Do whatever you want. Bam. And now you can see that you're ready to go. Now, what's great about Doom Runner is that it does a number of things that I really like. One, it allows you to use optional INI files, which means that if you have one mod with its own settings, it won't affect all your key bindings and everything in other mods. Also, it has presets, so you can sort of set up a default setting, and then when you're done, all you can do, you can just clone it and then start a new setup, okay? Which is very, very cool. And that's basically why I use it. But the other really cool thing is that it actually exposes the final launch command, which is down here. So you can copy this and turn it into a single click icon and put it on your start menu, which is really handy if you're playing on something like the Ally Rock, which, you know, isn't that great at navigating windows. You can set up launching icons and just add them to your game list. So if I just go bam into Doom 2 here and I click launch, it's going to take a little longer to launch than normal because it just has to do a few things to set up the engine. And now it's running. Okay, very, very easy. But we're not really done yet. There's a few more things I want to do. For starters, what I'm going to do actually, I'm just going to hit launch. I'm just going to hit Control Enter and just make this just so it doesn't interfere with my recording. Anyway, whatever. What was I saying? Yeah. So back in our folder, I'm going to go back into my engines. I'm going to go into loaders. No, go into engines. Where did I put it? Yeah, here we are. So I've made this directory called configs and save files. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to make a directory here called default. And if I go to my document, see, basically GZ Doom is so powerful now that people are using it to make commercial games. So they had to start conforming to the Windows conventions of where to put files. So they actually place your save games in C drive users, and they place your INI file in my documents, my games. So we want to get rid of that. So we started Doom. So there's the GZ Doom. I'm just going to go to configs. I'm just going to copy that over and call it default.ini. Okay. And now if I go into Doom Runner, which is so awesome because it reads all this data live. So you just copy something in and it's instantly available. Now I've selected default ini. That means any changes I make are not going to affect and be written into that other directory. So let's just do a couple more edits here. I'm just going to edit this. And I'm going to make a couple of changes here. For starters, I'm going to talk about sound fonts later, but basically a sound font is how Doom does. I'll just make a directory inside engines called sound fonts with a underscore to send at the top. Sound fonts is how you run MIDI. It's basically a list of instrumental samples that MIDI then triggers. So different sound fonts sound completely different. And it's a whole complicated thing of retro gaming that gets really, really, because you know, people fiddle with sound fonts for ages. I'll talk about sound fonts at the end. But for now, I'm just going to make a directory called sound fonts, and I'm going to go into my GZ Doom folder and copy the sound font that it came with, which is the GZ Doom sound font. Okay, so I'm just going to copy that over. And then I'm going to copy that directory. And in the default ini, I'm going to come down here where it says sound fonts, and I'm just going to change this path like so. I'm also going to Control F and go save underscore, and that's going to find the saved dir directory. I'm just going to change that to my save dir. Where was it? Save dir, there it is. And you can do other things if you want to, like the screenshot dir, if you want to set the screenshot dir, you know, you can do that as well. So I'll just, I'll make one here. Let's go. Screenshots, whatever. The point is you can set up this ini, just do a little things, but the ones I definitely want you to do is make the save game dir and set the sound font dir. And there's one more thing we're going to be doing. So now we've basically got our default setup ready to go. We can play any of these things, and we just hit the launch and we're in. Okay. And of course, what's good is any changes we make are going to be locked into that default ini. So what I like to do now is I go through the extensive options of Doom and set it up. I customize my controls, set up my player and all sorts of things. but there's one more thing yet to do. So if I go to player setup as example, I'll just change this to a Jinx, and I'm going to set to always run on. Okay. And then if I come down to full options and I go down to gameplay and I turn off allow free look, right? Because I want a vanilla experience. I don't want to be able to have free look. So I turn that off. If I start a new game, I've got no free look, right? Now I can jump and I can crouch, which you can't do in the original. You can just unbind them so you don't have to worry about options. Anyway, the point is, if I go save current settings, and then I quit out of the game, and then I launch it again, go new game, look, free look is back. But if I go into options and go to player setup, you can see that this other stuff I did was saved. And that's because some of the more powerful options, basically the gameplay options, and there's some other ones as well, will not save into INI files. They embed themselves into save games, but not into INI files. So if you have a look at the top of the screen where it says gameplay options, here it says DM flags. As you change things, so if I turn allow jump off, see how it's changed the DM flag to 65536? I need to enter that into a config file. Okay, so basically any of these powerful settings that you want to change the functions of the game, you need to save that as a config file if you want it to be persistent when you just load without loading save games. Okay, and these are really, really handy, especially if you're modding. Like for example, when I'm modding, I have no monsters, you know what I mean? I have no sound and all this kind of stuff, which I just use with a config file. But for most people, all you really need are two config files. One that has allow jump and one that does not have allow jump. And that will allow you to have two versions of Doom that you can quickly load, which will be more classic feeling and more modern feeling. So let's just load up a text editor, and I'm just going to copy that down. So that's DM flags space, don't use an equals, 65536. That's the code for having this set up. So if I change other things, see how everything changes. Okay, so the thing we want to do now is just close this, and we just want to have two more changes. So we're going to go back into GZen Doom. I'm going to go underscore auto configs, and I'm going to make two text files. New text file. I'm going to call this free look no .cfg, and I'm also going to make one called free look yes. So free look yes is just basically an empty. It's just empty, and free look no isn't. So now I'm going to go into my copy that configs directory and go back to my default.ini, and down here you'll have these auto execs. Okay, so we're playing Doom, so I'm just going to make this link straight to, what did I call it? Free look no. Free look no. So basically, if it finds a text file with nothing in it, it's all default. So I've just got one that's default, and that's got everything on it. Okay, so now if I come into the thing and I launch, everything's looking good. If I come in here, you can see I can free look. What I might do, there's an option search. I'm just going to search for screen, I think it is. Show end Doom screen. I'm going to change that to only modified. Save current settings. So now when I quit, it just quits. Right. So what I'm going to do now, if I just copy this, I'm going to call this classic style. And now I come back into my folders, configs. I'm just going to copy this and call it classic style.ini. I'm going to edit that, and I'm going to change the auto exec to free look yes. So now I've got classic style. I'm going to change it to the classic style ini, and I can launch, and free look is disabled. Okay. The point is, let's get rid of that. The point is, I have a default setting. So I go through all my settings, get it set up exactly the way I want, and then I can copy it as many times as I like. I also have two config files, one for free look yes and free look no, which allows me to assign them to the ini file and just do whatever the hell I need. And that's basically, you're ready to go. Okay, you can play whatever you want. So let's look at a few more advanced things now. We're going to look at how to do mods. So if I just go into the mod folder, which I set as mods and wads, I'm just going to go to my archive, go into maps. Now I've put the official maps in here, Legacy of Rust, Master Levels, No Rest for the Living, and Sigil. There's also Sigil too, I haven't bothered to download it. But let's put in Evternity. Evternity is, in my opinion, one of the greatest mods ever made for Doom. I suggest everybody plays it, especially Evternity 2, the new one. It hasn't been, it's still like a release candidate 5, but it's amazing. So I'm just going to copy this across. And while that's copying, I might also just copy a few other things. I'm going to make a directory called game. You can make any directories you want. This is just the way I've done it because it, you know, I like things to be neat. Gameplay tweaks. And we're going to grab weapon wheel and aim assist, which is what you definitely want if you are playing on gamepad. And just, I'll also put in gameplay overhauls, and I'll just copy over Project Brutality and enhance Vanilla Project for a demo in a sec. So if we go back into our launcher, you can see that it's found those files that we've placed in, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clone my default setup. Now I haven't set up the Doom everything I want. Remember, set up your default so when you clone it, everything comes with it, right? And I'm just going to call this Evternity 2. And then I'm going to just add the Evternity 2 WAD. And remember, I want to make my own ini file for it, just in case I have any changes that I don't want to propagate to the other projects. Because some mods, like if I do Project Brutality, that's got like glory kills and bullet times and all sorts of crazy things with their own keybinds. I don't want all that stuff to be in my other ones. Let's go to engines, DZ Doom, configs. I'm just going to go copy this again. Evternity 2, ini. And for Evternity, I want to use free look no. And also, I want to have my own save games. So I'm going to go Evternity 2 and just copy that save game path. Save underscore, we'll find it straight away. Bam. All right, so now that I've created those ini files, come down here, select the Eternity 2 ini file, and now it's a completely separate entity. Anything I do in this, you know, in this profile will not affect anything else. So let's launch it and load up Evternity, which is amazing. I just can't get over how amazing it is. It blows my mind every time I play it. It's a little dark on my monitor. I'm just going to set it to 4. And yeah, let's do a save. I'll just go boom, boom, caps lock E1, M1. And notice I've got no mouse look. Come back over here. In Evternity 2, we've now got the save game. Okay, so it's all separate. And you can do this as many times as you want. So say I copy out default again. This time I'll call it project. I'll call this EVP Doom 2. Do the same thing. This time I'll copy the default WAD. I'll just make a EVP-Doom 2 directory for the save games. Configs, I'll copy the default EVP-Doom 2. Edit that and change the save game directory. And it's that quick. So now I've got EVP2, I've got the EV2 thing, and I'll just go to gameplay overhauls and I'll just add EV, well, that's Project Brutality actually. I'll just add EVP. Okay, so I usually actually have one called default, and then I've got one called testing, which is just one that I just randomly chuck stuff into. And it's I only use the presets when I want to play a proper playthrough. But anyway, so the way the mods work is that there's a load order. So things at the top of the stack will replace things behind it if they're replacing the same objects or whatever. Is an easy way to think about it. So for example, in this case, you got Evternity, you got EVP, and then there's the EVP patch. It goes above it. So now if I launch this, notice that you've got to have a wider HUD. It's also got its own mod options. So flashlight, we need to give it a hotkey for that, for example. Maybe I don't want footsteps on, whatever. The point is, because I have got my own INI file, none of that is going to transfer into my Evternity 2 save. And I've got FreeLook set up here as well. Whatever. And just to show you, you know, you can put in Project Brutality or whatever you want to do. Okay. The point is, that's basically how it works. So I'm going to go to my default folder again. I'm just going to show you 2 gameplay tweaks that I think you should put into every single copy of Doom that is running on console, like with a gamepad. One is called Weapon Wheel and the other one's called Aim Assist. Now, Aim Assist is totally tweakable. You can set it to be as aggressive or as lenient as you want, but it really makes a huge difference when you're using gamepad to have a little bit of help. Well, it does for my old man reflexes anyway. And Weapon Wheel, I'll show you what that is in a sec. So I've just dragged them in. I'm going to go launch. Remember, we're in the default. So we're going to go to options, and you'll see gearbox options and aim assist mod options. So in gearbox options, you can change the behavior and customize this, but the real behavior I do, and I think you should do as well. I'm talking to my mate here that I'm making this video for, and to everyone else who's watching it, but change the intercept weapons to on, and changed it freeze to enemies and player, the single player only, okay? So now when I try and change my weapon with the mouse wheel, I get this awesome little wheel, and it works even with the one key, okay? And that can change the mouse key to the roll key to something else if you want. So if I shoot, see how it even freezes it. It makes a huge difference when you're playing with a gamepad. And you can see I'm not actually touching my keyboard at the moment, but can you see how it's kind of tracking? I move that. I need one where there's lots of people. See how it's tracking. That's the auto assist mod doing its thing. Okay. Now obviously it's a bit overkill when you're playing on keyboard, but it's really handy when you're playing with a console. And of course there's all sorts of setups. You know, you can change how powerful it is and how aggressive it is. So I strongly recommend using them in every single copy of Doom that you're running with a keyboard. So let's go options, safeguard settings, and quit. So now I've got that inside my default. So I'm just going to delete these because I've got to go through and set up all my defaults how I like it. And one of the things I like to do is set my audio. Okay, so there was a problem with the last bit of the recording, the very last part. I just want to talk about sound fonts, so I'm just going to re-record this. Sound fonts is how MIDI functions. So basically MIDI is a series of computerized sheet music or like a tracker, if you remember the old tracker days. And your sound font is the instruments that it triggers. So different sound fonts sound completely different because they might have different samples for, say, guitars or drums or whatever. And there's a whole sub-community of retro gamers who go crazy with sound fonts because it can make huge differences. And sound fonts are not just used in Doom, they're used in anything that uses MIDI. So if you're into retro gaming, that means ScumVM, DOSBox, etc., etc. If you launch Doom, remember we made a directory called sound fonts and we added it to the INI. Now I've copied in a couple of sound fonts and I've also copied in some drum kits sound fonts because sound fonts do not have to have the whole orchestra. Some of them are just individual parts. So you could actually combine your own sound fonts. I'll show you how to do that at the end of this. And I've also added Doom 1 and 2 MIDI files just so I can play them so I don't have to keep loading up the game. And I've also added the Doom 1 and Doom 2 MIDI files. You can get these yourself by just searching duck for, Doom 2 MIDI, and then just type archive behind it to get the Internet Archive. And it should be, yeah, it's the first one. Bam. And then you can download the MIDIs. And this is just the individual MIDI files. It just makes it a lot easier to test sound fonts without having to load up the game. But let's load up the game. And if we go to full options and then go to sound options, advanced options, MIDI player options, it's a bit hidden. You've got all the different MIDI things. So you're probably using Fluid Synth or Timidity. They're both sort of software rendering ones inside GZ Doom. We'll get to using more fancy ones later. But so if I click on Fluid Synth, GZ Doom is the one it comes with, and here are all the other ones that I have set up. Okay, so if I go to GZ Doom, restart sound, that's what we get. If I go to, say, Fatboy and restart the sound, that's what we get. In fact, you know what I might do is I'll load up the Doom 1 WAD so we can listen to the original and the best the theme song everyone knows. So if I go back to full options, sound options, advanced options, MIDI player, let's put it on Timidity and we'll set it to Arachno font. What are we doing here? Oh, we're still using FluidSIF. So there's Timidity. You can hear the difference now. And let's try Fatboy. Let's try the patched Roland one, which is a sort of like the original, the way it used to sound. Timbers of Heaven is a fan-created one, designed specifically for Doom. Arachno is a really good one people like for Doom. And 8BM is like a very small one that's also pretty cool for Doom. So what I'm trying to get at here is you just stick your sound fonts in your sound font directory, and then you just you know, select them like this. So let's go to Arachno. Nice. But how do I get out of here? There's a more advanced thing you can do. You can get a piece of software called by Coolsoft called Virtual MIDI Synth. And this is a really awesome piece of software. And it basically creates a MIDI driver that other applications can access. But what's interesting about MIDI Synth, apart from having a more robust way of playing the music, you can actually layer things. So if I just go into my Doom MIDI and I run E1M1, this is what it currently sounds like. Okay, but if I turn off these things, I've actually got two percussion drums. So if I just turn on Ultimate Drums and I run the same thing, it's just the drum beats, right? And if I turn on just acoustic real drums, and I can turn them on together, and now I can turn on the actual rest of the instruments. And so you can actually get sound fonts with everything separated, like, oh, I really like the guitars in this font, I'm going to take those guitars. I really like the you know, the synth sounds in this one. Whatever you want to do. Now, like I said, people get really into sound fonts. But even if you're not going to do all that advanced stuff, the sound fonts will sound better from inside Virtual Synth, right? So once you've got it set up the way you want, like say, like I'll just give you some examples. Say I just, I get Timbers of Heaven, and I just put this at the top. Let's listen to that with my drum beats. Or let's try Fatboy. Fatboy is a really good sound font. It's actually designed for retro games, so it's much more retro adventure games, so it's much more orchestral. Whatever. The point is, let's leave it on Timbers of Heaven just for the hell of it. I might just turn Timbers of Heaven down a bit because it was quite loud, wasn't it? Okay, whatever. You can fiddle with this to your heart's content. But now let's just launch. We'll start a new game. Sound options. And we're using Timidity, but we're going to change this to virtual synth. And now it's playing whatever we set up in here. And that's it. And that's how you get good sound for your sound fonts. Now you don't need to use the virtual synth like it. I was. Let me just turn it off. I had the sound, the music volume turned up super loud in the last demo I did before it. That was sort of screwed up for some reason. Like I said, you don't need to use virtual synth. Like you can just copy it into the sound font dir, and you're good to go. Now there are so many sound fonts you can get. So if I go back to archive.org, I can just type in 500 sound fonts archive. And here, there you go. There's a 32-bit gig SF2 pack for you to use and go through. And there's so many you can try. This one here, for example, is called the Ultimate Doomers Sound Font Collection, which is kept on a Google Drive. I'll have all the links in the description. It has some really, really good stuff in it. But this one actually has them stored as SF pack, which is a kind of zipped format, which sometimes when you download sound fonts, they'll be in SF pack, which you can't actually use. All you need to do is run the SF pack app, which is a free program. You can just get it from file info or Softpedia or something, and it can unarchive them and like transform them back into SFV. But my point is you can just download sound fonts from the internet, and if you go to archive.org, you can find really, really good ones. And that, my friends, is about it. I will see you guys next time.